With all the games that have been released over the past couple of years, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor has maybe been my favorite to look back at and study as an example of innovations in design. What they were able to do with the Nemesis system is something that I hope we can see continue to trend in future games, but well, we'll get to that. First, let's talk about the game's mechanics. They're pretty similar to Assassin's Creed style or many of the other popular games in their combat and movement mechanics. This definitely goes a long way in making the game feel accessible, as new players can easily hop in if they're familiar with some of the other popular games and quickly figure out how to move around using the climbing, jumping, and even the combat mechanics competently. The philosophy they took with the RPG progression is that you don't necessarily need any of these abilities to complete the game, but that they're just going to give you a skill tree with fun and useful things for you to use that will make your journey easier and more fun as you build your character. With this also comes added loot in the form of runes that you could pick up after you've defeated significant enemies. These were helpful and you can equip them and use them, and they add benefits to your character, but it wasn't that compelling for me to pick up. I saw the floating orbs and I really wasn't that interested in what they did for me or how they looked, and I think it had something to do with the lack of impact when I collect these things. It doesn't feel like you've accomplished much. Alright, now let's dive into what is the Nemesis System. For each player, the game randomly generates an army of Uruks for you to go up against with Talion, your main character. You build relationships with each of these characters as the army is quite fluid and dynamic, and they change in rank and power, often fighting each other, struggling to reach the top. At the top, there are a bunch of war chiefs that serve as the game's boss enemies and are very difficult to reach and defeat once you get there. Enemies will remember encounters that you've had and make reference to them when you engage them again. If, for example, an enemy killed you and you return again, they'll remember that and kind of make a comment. Hey, didn't I kill you before? Well, yeah, you did. Now I'm here to kick your fucking ass. Playing around with the army dynamics is by far the best part of the game, in my opinion. You hop in and try to influence intricately what's happening and change what's going on so you can get maybe an Uruk that's on your side, higher up in the army, or move them around or defeat enemies, and just having fun with it is a very compelling reason to interact with all these captains and work your way through this Nemesis system. The mechanic of branding and taking over a captain for your own and have them at your command so you can kind of control them and guide their growth up the ranks through to Sauron's army is also an incredible mechanic, one that I love doing. It was a challenge to decide, okay, am I going to take this guy over or am I going to kill him so my guy can come in here? Adding interesting decisions and dynamic stories that can occur individually for each player based on the choices and the army that was generated for you. Now, the generation of this army, and as it's randomly assembled, could have been handled very poorly and could have Uruks that often reappear and are the same looking and the same feeling, but incredibly, the army feels totally unique and you rarely see overlaps in terms of the names, appearance, fighting style, different abilities, and all sorts of stuff like that rarely seem to repeat, or at least in the same combination. It's a varied army that feels diverse and unique for each playthrough. This Nemesis system is an incredible example of what can be done with dynamic stories, emergent stories that happen based on player choices rather than scripted events that happen all the time. I really am looking forward to see what future developers can create using this as a framework to develop even more intricate and developed stories that emerge for the player through gameplay. Now, there is an overarching story that plays throughout in the back of Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. You play as Talion, who's hooked up with a long-deceased elf who've kind of occupied the same body, and using both of your collective powers, you're trying to fight back against the armies of Sauron and defeat him or whatever. In my opinion, it's a pretty weak overall plot with a few very jarring moments, especially that first scene, but the rest kind of just blends together and serves more as a tutorial for the player about the mechanics of the game, and in this, it does well. Each of the missions assigns a different mechanic to the game that you can learn through the mission and then use in your interactions with the Nemesis system. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is presented very well. The graphics are competent and look really good. The two different distinct game worlds, the first one and the second area that you can access, are very distinct and different, giving a different feel for the player, changing things up as you work your way to kind of the second half of the game. And the different enemy looks and sounds are awesome, hilarious, work well, they look great, and they serve as excellent enemies for you to kind of build up relationships with and be your nemesis and go up against and fight them, and it works great. Overall, with the combination of the incredible accomplishment that was the Nemesis system mixed together with strong player mechanics and a bit of a lackluster story, but this still makes for an overall great experience for players and a lot of fun to play through. So, for that reason, my final verdict for Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is a 9 out of 10. An excellent game. If you haven't had a chance to check out this game or its sequel, I highly recommend it. The Nemesis system is something that is well worth your time to play through. It is a ton of fun and a huge innovation in modern gaming. But that'll do it for Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. I gotta thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe leave a like or a comment letting me know your thoughts. But thank you guys again so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time on Yes Guy Gaming.